welcome to this shipper update. I'm Anthony Smith, Chief Economist here at FreightWaves, and it's Monday, so that means one thing. We have to do a weekend releases or a preview for this week's biggest release that might be significant for you, starting it off with no other than the Producer Price Index, which might be a little bit impactful for some of you shippers out there. As you can see in the chart behind me, the Producer Price Index has been increasing on a pretty rapid clip. And so this index is definitely going to be indicative of the prices that producers pay. And as you can see, it's gone up and up and up. As these prices continue to go up, it's of course going to get passed on to the consumers, as we've also seen the CPI, the Consumer Price Index, increase as well. No surprises here that this upward momentum is persisting, and that's really showing us that these inflationary pressures will likely go on for the next few weeks here at least, but we all know it's probably going to go a lot longer than that. So we're going to be watching this one closely just to see what the latest number is and if we're ever going to really hit that peak anytime soon. But it seems that even if we do hit a peak, that it's going to really be moderating at that higher level for quite some time, but because it really has not shown too much slowdown at any point in time here. Moving into our next chart here, because I'm excited about this week. It's going to be a jam-packed week of releases. We're going to have retail sales. This is going to get updated for February. We saw a pretty strong showing in January with over 3%, I think it was 3.7, 3.75% if I'm not mistaken, on a month-over-month basis. Now, I say I'm excited for this one, but I am already really excited to see what the March numbers would be like, even though we're still in the middle of the month here, just because there is just so much activity going on, especially with what's happening with inflationary pressures, how much people are having to pay at the pump now. How is that going to really impact some of the purchasing decisions that we're going to see consumers make throughout this month moving forward? Now, moving into February, before I get too ahead of myself, because like Bill Belichick is on to the next game, we can already start thinking about the game after the next game. In this upcoming release, I'm going to be watching closely for those online sales, e-commerce, non-store retailers. And so that's what I have pulled up here. And this blue line is going to be retail sales for non-store retailers. And so that's going to really be a lot of those e-commerce goods. And of course, that's going to feed a little bit into the freight market as well. So we also have our van outbound volume index here in the green line. We're going to be watching closely as we've seen volume start to kind of tick down. And it's going to be a much more recent data set in those volumes index that we have here in Sonar to show what's going on right now. So with this latest trend, I wouldn't be too surprised if we see some slower growth, a moderating trend, maybe the low below 1% gain in this upcoming month. I wouldn't be surprised if it was anywhere from flat at 0%, which would still be impressive after posting a 3.75% monthly gain in the most updated report that we have out now. So I wouldn't be too surprised if you see something flat or slightly down in this most recent month, or just slightly at 0.5 at the max. So we're going to be watching that one closely because it's going to really be indicative of how much momentum some of these consumers had going into this really new inflationary period that was already built on top of another one. Going into our next chart here, we're going to also look at industrial production. This is one that's likely going to get a bit of a bump up from all the recent activity that's happening right now with these international conflicts, especially looking at gas and oil production that's going to be happening domestically. Also looking at defense spending, that's likely also going to ramp up as well. This is all going to really impact industrial production overall. And all of that is also going to really feed into, of course, my favorite index, that flatbed outbound tender rejection index. And so we're seeing that flatbed capacity has remained very, very tight over the last few months here, really kind of increasing week after week after week. We're seeing this ongoing tightening in flatbed, and that's really indicative of some of that upstream activity. We're looking at industrial sectors, we're looking at housing markets as well. Speaking of housing, on to our next chart here, because this is it's like Christmas right now for me this week. So we have housing starts as well, which are going to get updated. And then in the green line, we have our housing permits. So housing is in an interesting place because we're seeing so many permits put out. A lot of a push forward right now with a lot of homes really looking to get locked in before any more interest rates are going to be passed through or increasing mortgage rates. And so The big thing is lumber is once again showing those increases in commodity prices, and so that's going to be a big factor here. Builders not really being able to take on as many projects and really kind of turning some others away. So even if we do see some downward movement here in housing starts, there's a lot of activity going on in the underlying trend, and that's going to be important to watch. What's going on with homes under construction? What's going on with permit activity? What's going to happen as we get into some of the warmer months throughout the year? So this is going to be an interesting one, and also another one that, of course, feeds into flatbed trailer activity as well. Going into our next chart, we have one more, and it is the weekly initial jobs claims. We'll be watching that one as well. Comes out Thursday morning once a week, just to kind of check in on those consumer conditions. And so, strong consumer, strong economy, but those consumers getting eaten up by inflation. The big saving grace for them right now is that jobs market and those options to switch and really kind of feel confident about moving forward. But as we know, that confidence is getting eaten up month after month after month. But that's going to do it for this week in releases, or the upcoming releases for this week. We're going to take a quick break, but don't go anywhere. We'll be right back with more FreightWaves Now.